Hi my friends, I'm Allie Wilkins. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to talk about divine love templates. I did a video on Instagram a couple of weeks ago and I had a lot of requests to talk about this on a deeper level. I'm sure this will be one of many videos because there's a lot to discuss here, but I want to talk about first how you might be experiencing this in your own life and as a whole, what is sort of happening. So basics. We've been taught a lot of unrealistic things about relationships and romance, particularly through things like Disney movies or through even today, like Instagram, seeing unrealistic imagery of what relationships are like and what we should be expecting. But you guys already know this part, so just stay with me. But I wanted to share this anyways. With movies and romantic comedies and all that, we develop this very unrealistic expectation that there's a happily ever after. There's not. There's not. We think that a relationship will just hit a certain space and then it will be seamless. There will be no problems. It'll just move so smoothly. And that might be the case if you're someone who's extremely stagnant and not growing and your partner is the same way. And there's a massive shift happening within relationships that I want to talk about because it's very destabilizing and a lot of people are going to look at you like you're a crazy person when you start to see this and make decisions based upon it. So relationships in the past have been based on survival and companionship. If you go back thousands of years, why marriage was even created, the concept of marrying each other, being bound by law, you have to be together. Or, the more romantic way to say it is you choose to be together. You choose till death do us part. That happened as a means of survival. If you think about in earlier times, people weren't being married together for love. They were arranged together, certain families, so that a daughter would marry into a wealthy family that she'd be more taken care of. Or it was more so arranged marriages or marriages that would, at minimum, create more safety. You have a teammate to help you, right? And that piece of it still lives on today, right? That's actually beautiful. You have a teammate to go through life with. It's beautiful. But the roots of marriage are actually more based in security and survival than actual love. Also, I find it so interesting. I don't remember where I learned this. It was years ago and it blew my mind. It was when marriage was actually invented, people lived till they were 30 or 35 or 40 max. They weren't living 90 years, so they weren't spending 80 years with somebody or 50 years with somebody. They were spending 15 years with somebody. And for women particularly, men might notice this as well, but women I feel would notice this more. In movies and especially that are depicted in older times, the marriages are always horrifying. The woman is usually treated pretty poorly. Of course, women didn't have rights for a long time, right? They were considered property. It's not how it used to be in the old days. Anyways, you can go to my playlist called Ancient Feminine Remembrance. There's a lot of stuff about that there. But I just have to include it. It's not how it's always been. Anyways, so we look at how marriages have moved throughout time, throughout the centuries, and it's just now, probably in the last 100 years, as generally we've created more of a stable, we know we're not going to starve, right? So in the 1800s, you might have had to supply crops for your farm, or if you didn't have money or crops, your family would literally starve. That's probably not going to happen today for the vast majority of people. There would be somebody who would feed you, right? You're not going to die out of starvation or something similar. So what that means is that we've come into more of a age or a time of leisure. We have more time for leisure. We have more time for resting. We have more time in general because we also work a lot in this society. But in comparison to older times, that it was more survival based. And I'm talking about in the last 500 or 1,000 years. So with that has been the creation of a new form of relationship that's not just about survival. Now you can actually marry for love. And that's probably been the case for the last 100 years. You can actually be marrying into love. Maybe the last 50, because women for a long time were marrying for security still, even in the early 1900s, for money, for safety in that regard. But now that women are working and have been working and are capable of making just as much money as a man for the most part, that's changed a bit. Anyways, so we've seen over time that the template of relationships and love does change dramatically. And now we're at this space that if you are operating at a certain, you could say this in a few ways, and I might get this wrong a little bit, so don't quote me exactly on this, but if you're operating at a certain frequency, or if you've come into this lifetime with a certain role, a certain mission to raise the frequency of the planet, there might be other plans for you. And likely you will have choice points. Everybody has choice points. But if you're one of these people, which you likely are if you're watching this, and if you've found me and you watch my other videos, you probably are, there are going to be choice points where you get to decide what you actually want to create in your life. And who you are with, who you are in a relationship with, is vastly important. You cannot become certain versions of yourself if you are intimately tied to someone who is at a lower frequency, or who keeps you stagnant, or who you're constantly having to, like, you know, in some cases, like baby somebody or take care of them, or do their work for them, like their healing work, trying to do it for them. They're not on the same pace as you. And it's not from a judgmental space, it's just from a purely observing space. Now, I want you to think about, if you're with someone or by yourself, if you're with someone or by yourself, if you're with someone, if this other person is capable of actually raising your frequency. So in this scenario over here, you are either staying at the same frequency, or it's being lowered by this other person, or it's like wobbly because you're engaging with this other person all the time. Side note, because whoever you're sexually intimate with, you are exchanging your energy with them. Also, just like who you're sleeping next to in your bed, that physical proximity, who you're engaging with in an intimate way of any sort, you're exchanging energy when you're doing that. So if you see that person as being like really low consciousness or something like that, guess what? Their energy is inside of you, literally. Their energy is moving through your own circuitry of energy. So you better make sure that you want their energy in you for other obvious reasons, So this option over here, which, let's talk about just being by yourself. Then you can flourish at your own frequency. But people are deadly afraid of being by themselves. People are, especially women, are so afraid of being by themselves long term. It makes sense. We've been raised to think that we can't do anything without a man, or that we need a man to take care of us or control us. And even though that's not necessarily the programming from, like, if I'm 31 right now, like, if that might not be your programming that you were brought up with, but it definitely was the programming that your mother was brought up with, that her grandmother, or that her mother, your grandmother, was brought up with. It's ancestral, so it still lives within us. So by yourself, you will be able to flourish at your own frequency, and you are the only determinant, if that's a word, of your frequency. If it's over here and you're partnered with somebody else who has an equal frequency, you guys can actually rise together, and it's actually going to be more harmonious. And so a lot of people are finding that they're in this sort of relationship, and it doesn't mean that the other person is like bad, or like they're such a muggle, or like anything like that. There are a lot of muggles, but my point is, it doesn't have anything to do with the other person. You're going to be facing choice points of like, where do you want your frequency to go? Certain people can meet you and certain people can't, and that's all you need to worry about. You don't need to think about the judgments that the mind will want to make about the other person, either way. All that you're going to be asked is, what do you desire in your life? Where do you want to go? How do you want to experience life? What frequency do you want to be operating at? You know, it's like, if you're dating someone who's an alcoholic, logically, you think that that's their problem. You think that that's, it's gonna be annoying when I have to go pick them up from getting a DUI, or it's gonna be annoying when I have to go do this. But it's not so conscious in our minds of like, oh, their energy is actually tethering me down and not allowing me to go to another frequency because you're in that frequency with them. Your two frequencies are like, if you think about your aura is blending with theirs. So shifting a little bit, I just wanted to kind of explain that first. There's a lot of people, especially since 2020, when we had a big collective awakening. Many of us had awakenings before 2020, but the collective had a huge awakening in 2020, and it was the beginning of, I believe, the age of Aquarius. Not everybody believes that, but it was the beginning of a massive ascension in the collective where our frequencies are all rising, and we have this momentum behind us, allowing us to go to much higher fields of frequency and experiencing different things and dissolving all the programming. That's a very basic way of saying it, and coming back into our true remembrance of who we actually are. So there's a lot of choice points that are happening. And what that's going to look like is you have a feeling inside. For most of you watching this, I feel like this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a feeling inside that your relationship isn't right. Everybody knows what this feeling feels like because most of us have had multiple relationships. There might not be tangible evidence. There actually probably won't be if it's related to this. There's just going to be a knowing. There's going to be a knowing. It might feel like there's something higher available for you. It might also just be your own initiation, like, honey, you've got to be by yourself for this. You can't. I know personally for myself, the initiations I've gone through, never could have gone through them with a partner. I had to be single. I had to be by myself. You can only experience certain things in the right environment. So for example, well, do I want to go there? I want to keep this just really focused on the Divine Love template. So there's this new template coming in that's a mission template. And it's like, hey, the collective is in, like, we're experiencing a deep awakening, and we're moving into another age, the age of humanitarianism, the age of conscious technology, the age where, so basically we've moved from a dark age, from the Kali Yuga, and we're moving into an age that's of higher frequency. If you're interested in the astrological ages of time, I have a great masterclass that's free, which is phenomenal, called the Divinely Funded Masterclass. I'll put it in the link below. And I go deeply into the astrological ages of time. It's fascinating. Anyways, so we've been in the Kali Yuga. It's like, you can think about this as a circle. Golden age up here, the age of the floods, the age of return to civilization, the age of, like, the Egyptian pyramids, age of Hathor, age of Taurus, and then the age of Aries, Moses time, and then the age of Pisces, which began with Jesus' murder. And then that's what we're coming out of, the age of Pisces, which is the darkest age of all time. This is the Kali Yuga, the dark ages. And so we're ending the Kali Yuga now, moving into a new age with a higher frequency. And so what that means is there's a lot of partners who are going to be coming together that have certain missions together. Now, this doesn't mean they're going to be lifelong partners. There are some people who are going to come in that purely activate you. You activate each other in a certain way. They highlight some of your wounds for you to heal, or they activate beautiful parts of yourself. It doesn't have to necessarily be, wounds are beautiful too, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like they poke your wounds. It could be like they highlight the joy that life gets to offer you. It could be something more of that realm, but most likely it's going to be that they're poking your wounds. And so there are a lot of partners who may come into your life like that, and you both are helping each other. But because we've been so programmed that there's one person we're supposed to be with, and there's a one, which I sort of do believe that still, but there's also a lot of programming around that that's very unhealthy and keeps us incredibly attached. And it's like, probably like we're actually just the one, right? There's no one outside of us, that's for sure. So there's a lot here, as you can see. So there's going to be soul contracts that are destined to take place, that it's going to be a lot more tricky for them to happen if you don't leave the relationship that you're like, I know that I shouldn't be in this, but there's no reason why. I have no evidence. I can't, like, it doesn't make sense logically. And maybe it does. For some people, it will make sense. Like, oh, they're an alcoholic and they're abusive to me. Of course I need to leave. But for others, it's going to be like, this was my scenario. Like, for others, it's going to be like, I don't understand why I need to leave this. There's just this feeling inside that there's something else. Not that this other thing isn't good enough, but that there's something more and that I can't be a part of this anymore. That is going to be the most difficult thing. If you don't have a reason to leave someone, but you feel it in your bones, that is going to be one of the hardest decisions you have to make. And it's a powerful test of, do you follow your soul? And you have to know how to decipher your soul from your ego. Because a lot of people also just run from relationships because they're scared of commitment or they're scared of intimacy. And they're like, oh, well, my soul told, like, no, your ego told you to. You're afraid. So you have to know how to decipher between the two of those. But your soul will whisper. Your soul will be gentle with you. Your soul's not going to make up stories about this other person. It's just going to be like, hey, do you feel this? Hey, like, there's something more available for you. And then it'll be quiet. It's not going to be loud and chatty. So the choice point is, are you going to stay? And this is like how I'm hearing this coming through. Are you going to stay in a mediocre situation? Are you going to stay in something that you know isn't your full potential, isn't the full experience that you want to have out of fear? Are you going to stay in it out of fear? Or are you going to trust that you're completely held, safe, protected, and that there are many soul contracts coming together that will support you, your growth, and your joy and your love? So yeah, there's a group of people who in their mission is to partner with certain people to create certain energies together. And the third energy that is created for them, this is called Hieros, which can be described as an internal experience of the union of your masculine and feminine energies coming together, creating a third energy. But it can also be described in a physical partnership, a physical partnership of two people coming together, and there's a third energy created between the two of them. And it's not a child's energy, it's a third energy created from the blending of their own energies. So this sort of relationship is going to look very different than a traditional relationship. Traditional relationships, this is something that might be hard to hear or hard to look at, but I invite you to just see what pings inside of you of like, oh yeah, this is what's actually happening, or like, no, that doesn't. Just see what comes up for you. Traditional relationships in many cases are based on owning the other person, controlling them, and both parties will do this in their own sort of way. And this isn't subtle, like you can't go out past 9 p.m. You can't do this. This will be in subtle ways, like you want someone to be a certain way. And this is our ego, and this is a very challenging, this is the programming that will melt as you get into divine partnership and as you start to become the person who can be in divine partnership, because all of your ways of creating safety that are not pure will be highlighted, and they won't be tolerated in a divine partnership. You have to show up completely pure and in love. And it's not that, and I mean in unconditional love. So all of your little things that you do to try to control or to try to manipulate or try to get away with things or try to lie or try to, whatever your personal issues are, whatever your personal ways of coping or ways of being are, like, I can be really reactive. So that's something that always comes up in my relationships, and I'm given the opportunity to learn again and again and again and again. For you, it might be something different. And so if you're in a divine partnership, that will not be tolerated. You can't operate from lower ways of being. You have to operate with complete consciousness. And it's not that, see, this is like so difficult to talk about because we're all humans just humaning, but we're learning how to become more conscious individuals so we can have deep conversations about these sorts of things and grow together instead of acting out of unconscious ways with each other. Yeah, so we're moving into more conscious forms of relationships. But the problem with that is that a lot of people are not conscious of their ways of operating. They're not conscious of like, oh, I break up with everyone before they can break up with me because I'm afraid they're going to leave. Or, oh, I'm so afraid of abandonment that I will date anybody. Or, oh, like finding your little things that you do to try to keep you safe. Everybody has their own unique ones, but most people aren't conscious of them. Or they're conscious and they're like, whatever, I'm not going to do anything about it. So anyways, it's an incredibly important choice who you are in relationship with, who you are going to, definitely if it's someone that you're like spending your life with, but it's important that you notice these choice points and that you're aware of the incredible importance of these and the weight to them. So it's like, okay, here's a choice point. I'm with this person right now. I've been with this person for 5 years. I love them. We love each other. We have a good relationship. Something is just, there's a soul calling inside that there's something different. By the way, that soul calling is probably the person, another person that is, their energy is trying to get your attention, not consciously, but in the ethers, the universe is like, this isn't it. This isn't it. So anyways, you're with this person and you're going to have a choice point of, should I stay with this person or not? If you stay with them, maybe you'll have the white picket fence and the children and the dogs and get to go on vacation 2 times a year and have a really good quality of life. With this person over here that's calling, or by yourself, whatever, yeah, there's going to be a totally different experience, a totally different opportunity that takes you off into the unknown. And a lot of times that's also a massive part of this choice point that's offered, is like, this thing over here is very known. It's very predictable. You know what's going to happen. This path, you have no idea. This is like the wild's path. This is the path of the soul. This is more of the path of programming. So it's harsh but true. Anything that we know is predictable and like, I don't want to say anything, but a lot of these paths are going to be more of the path of programming of what we think we should do, or we feel safer doing it, so we go with that route. And the path of the unknown, I've been someone who's been at this choice point and chose the wild unknown path. It's not easy by any means. It dissolves your ego. It is a path of the ego dissolution. So it's literally a caterpillar melting into goo. That's what's going to happen. But then you become the butterfly. If you're over here, you're going to stay the caterpillar. You won't ever become the butterfly. So you have to choose. You have to choose. And you don't have to choose right in this exact moment, but you do have to make the choice. And there are windows of opportunity that if you skip them and you're aware of them, and you'll be aware of them, if you keep pushing it off, you're delaying other things. So yeah, there's so many things that we can talk about with conscious relationships. If you have specific questions below, please ask them and I can do other videos on them. But what I really wanted to just talk about today in this video is the divine love template itself, that there's a new template that's been set into place that's gaining more energy and momentum, that more people are tuning into, that offers a different experience of relationship. And I had like 2 years ago when I was at this choice point, I had this very profound moment where my guides told me, like, you're going to be a guide of this new way of relationship. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds so hard. And it is hard. It really is hard. However, it's what actual freedom is. It's what actual freedom is. And you will unlock versions of yourself that you have never experienced before and that you would never be able to experience in other sorts of experiences. So it's not even about the people that you're engaging with at all. It's about what's going on in your field of energy and how does it feel? And do you feel like your energy is being suppressed, limited? And this isn't because of the other person, it's because of your choice of where you put yourself. It has nothing to do actually with the other person. So we can't be just blaming who we're with. You're choosing to be with them. how does your energy feel? Suppressed, limited, or does it feel like expansive and it's free flowing and it's, yeah. So let me think, is there anything else that I want to add? Is there anything more here that wants to be shared? I'm just in the Akashic Records, so that's why I'm asking. There's something that wants to be clarified is like, this path is challenging and it's not for the weak-hearted, but you will be guided. And that's so true. You will be so guided. There will be people who pop up in your life out of nowhere that guide you on this path, that show you the way, that support you, that inspire you, that remind you, that help you. There will also, if you're open to it, there will also be other beings that come to you. This could be in the form of ascended masters, of angels, of ancestors. It could be in a million different forms, but there will be other beings who guide you. So for me, Mary Magdalene was a huge force of this for me. There's been so many goddesses who have supported me with this, like, anyways, so you'll be guided and you'll have the support, but you're still like an individual human doing it on your own. So it will feel challenging, but it's just because you're melting into goo, but then you're going to turn into a butterfly and you'll get to experience parts of yourself that you've never experienced. I know that I already said all of this, but I'm like wanting to repeat it. So also for some of us, for some of us, this isn't really going to be an option. There are some people who are just contracted together with other specific people, and it's like, this sounds dramatic, but it's like the world depends on the two of the people. Like some of the shifts that need to happen will actually depend on certain things happening. So you actually won't be able to control it, but it's a matter of how much chaos and how much destruction has to happen around you before you make the choice. Are you going to decide at the first whisper of your soul, the second, the 10th, the 20th, or are you going to wait 30 years? And then there's a much deeper form of destruction that occurs and chaos. Or, I'm going to leave it there. But the last thing that I'm just hearing is some of us are contracted into this and there's nothing that we can do about it. It's a part of the soul role, just like Mary Magdalene and Yeshua. Equal teachers, equal avatars of Christ consciousness, one in a female form, one in a masculine form. They needed each other to do it. Sure, there could have been someone who stepped in place of either of their roles, but their souls came in for that mission. So could they have been replaced by somebody else? Maybe, but it would have the most impact if it was their specific souls that came in with that direct mission. So, I just want you to think about the importance of that and look at how this divine love template is showing up in your life. Because if you're watching this is why I told you to watch the whole thing. You're watching this for a reason. You're not someone who's probably going to just settle for a mediocre relationship or a mediocre life. You probably have a large mission. When I say large, I don't mean it needs to be some enormous, like, Beyonce level fame or some, you have 100,000 followers. Like, it can be small and quiet and even just within yourself, but you have a mission of some sort to help humanity awaken to the truth, because we've been lied to for a very long time. So this is showing up deeply in the area of love, of relationships, excuse me, showing up deeply in all areas of life. And of course, love and relationships are a huge part of our life. And so of course, we're going to have to awaken in these areas too, right? And I want you to just for a moment think about the people in your life who are in romantic relationships and what the energy of that feels like. And do you have people in your life who their relationships inspire you? Their relationships, you can see that they just continually make each other better versions of themselves. They have a beautiful dynamic together. They're creating beautiful energy around them and in the world. Or Do you see that they're actually destructive to each other? Or do you see that they're just cohabitating together and there's nothing else? Do you see that they're tolerating each other? Do you see that they love each other, but they also can't show all of themselves to each other because it won't be accepted and loved? Or do you see control and manipulation? Like, what is it that you see in the relationships around you? And I want everyone, this will reflect your own sort of vibration, or not vibration, this will reflect the work that's available for you. Look at the relationships of people in your life and see what the main, like, what is the majority of them like? What is the majority of them like? That's going to showcase to you a lot. Because for one person over here, they might be in a community or in like a family line or in a situation where all their friends around them are in abusive relationships, and they have that pattern as well, or they're seeing that and not, you see what I mean? And then another person might have might be in a sort of dynamic where all the relationships around them, there's infidelity or there's lying and manipulation. Another person, it might be everybody in the relationships around them is just in like family mode, and there's not really deep love there, or there's not really intimacy there, and it's like friendship living together. That's a lot of people in the US, by the way. Or it might be that there's two people, the people around you, most of them are in divine partnerships and they're actually leading mission for the planet. And that's not always going to be super obvious, but you'll be able to tell in how the two people interact together and what it is that they do for each other's energy. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please let me know your reflections, your thoughts in the comments. If you have any questions that you would like me to go deeper in on, I'm happy to do so. And yeah, just what I mentioned before, you can go look at the Ancient Feminine Wisdom playlist here on YouTube. It's free. I have a couple of videos that I spoke about earlier in this video about how women were treated in much earlier times, a shift of matriarchy to patriarchy. These are all very important concepts to understand in every area of our life. And I'm like, why do more people not care about this? This is, when you start learning about it, it's incredibly important because it showcases all of our programming. So it's like a cheat sheet to healing yourself at a much more rapid pace because you can actually see the specific programming. It's like if you were fixing a virus on a computer and you actually had the code for the virus given to you. That would help you so much in removing it from the computer, right? So yeah, so there's playlists there. If you want to work with me in any capacity, I do Akashic record readings. That's the best way to work with me the first time. It allows me to go into your energy field, and basically I channel information from your personal guides to you. There are almost always deep shamanic activations that occur. This is a very powerful, profound, deep experience. The calls are 90 minutes. You can also work with me, excuse me, doing one-on-one coaching. I do masterminds, and I also do group courses, and I have a couple of self-study courses available on my website and other masterclasses you can watch. One I have available now is called Return to Goddess, and the other, that's about the shift from matriarchy to patriarchy. And then I also have another masterclass called Divinely Funded, where we talk about how to become wealthy as a light worker so that you can actually do your work in the world, because you need to be paid and taken care of to be able to efficiently and effectively do your mission. We can't be like poor and starving, right? So Divinely Funded is about allowing God to support you. And yeah, and also that's where I mentioned the astrological ages of time on a deeper level. So yeah, that's it. You can go to alliewilkins.com if you want to learn more, or just check out my Instagram at allie.wilkins. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.